So, welcome to Microsoft Excel Made Easy. We have two types of cell reference, the relative cell reference and the absolute cell reference. Relative cell reference is such that when the formula is copied down the group or across the row, the formula changes. But in absolute cell referencing, the cell does not change. Is that all right? So another major difference between relative and absolute cell reference is the introduction of the dollar sign for absolute cell reference. And let us just take a look at this example to clarify everything. Now, this is a catering invoice for Sweet, Delicious and More, which is a name of a business. And as you can see, we have this little catering invoice. We have the menu items. I'll have unit price for each of the menu item and the different quantities. To calculate the sales for the first menu item, you notice that the first thing that you can do is to do what? Quickly hit equal to multiply this unit price and the quantity and hit enter, and it should give you the sales made. Is that all right? Now, one other thing that we can do is to replicate this formula down the column. So relative cell referencing helps you to do this without any challenge, without any issue. So I can replicate by dragging down this column, okay, and our answer will be shown, or I can just double click at the bottom right corner of this cell and it will be filled for me automatically. Now, I want you to take note of what is happening here. All right, take note of what is happening at the formula bar. My formula here says what? B4 multiplied by what? C4. Now, relative cell reference is playing out well at this instance because there is no dollar sign in any of the cells mentioned here. So you can also use that as a criteria of knowing whether a cell is relatively cell referenced or absolutely cell referenced. Now, when you go down to the next formula, you will notice that what? The next formula says what? B5 multiplied by C5. When you go down to the next formula, it says B6 multiplied by C6. And on it goes. So relative cell reference, the formula changes as you go down the column or across the row. Does that help? Now we're going to look at the example on this same catering invoice, how absolute cell referencing works. One other thing you must take note is that we have a particular tax on this catering invoice and the tax rate is 7.5%. So to calculate the sales tax, it will be the sales multiplied by the tax. But it will be very, very easier for us to make sure that anytime we are multiplying the sales tax, we are always multiplying by 7.5. So instead of always coming back to 7.5 to do the multiplication, it will be easier for us to make sure that the 7.5 is fixed. How do we do that? So what you just need to do is to hit what? Equal to calculate the sales tax. This, which is the sales, multiplied by the tax rate. Now, once you've done that, you hit what? Enter. Definitely, the first answer you get is correct. So what if we decide to replicate this formula or use the autofill feature? Notice what will happen. So it gives us value, it gives us some wild numbers and value and value. So why is that so? I want you to also pay attention to what is happening on the formula bar. So the first one says what? D4 multiplied by F2. And definitely the second one, you notice that it will want to multiply D5 with what? F3. Because it's trying to obey the law of what? Relative cell referencing. Your guess is as good as mine that the next one will be what? D6 multiplied by what? F4. So what Excel is trying to do is to go to the next cell before it. Is that right? Now, if this is F2, the next one will be what? F3, the next one F4, the next one F5, and all that. So Excel is trying to pick the next cell. So how do we make sure that Excel always looked at what? F2. So the best thing that we can do is to, let's just undo this, is to reference this cell absolutely. So a very fast way of referencing a cell absolutely is selecting the cell and hitting F4 on your keyboard or function F4, depending on the setting of your keyboard. So, but for my keyboard, I have to hit F4 and to automatically add my dollar sign in front of my F or my column and in front of my row number. So if you don't want to go through this method, you can easily hold down your shift key and add the dollar sign at the respective positions. Now notice what happens. My answer does not change, but instead what eventually change is how Excel will look at my F2 when I replicate this formula down the column. So take note of what is happening in my formula bar. So D4 multiplied by F2, absolutely cell referenced. So the next one is D5 multiplied by F2, absolutely cell referenced. So this is multiplied by F2, absolutely cell referenced, and so on and so on. So by this, you can now see the difference between how to use relative cell reference and how to use absolute cell reference in calculations in Excel. So this is a very clear example that you can also apply to real world example. Hope you got value in this video. If you have any question, drop it in the comment section below. Do well to support our channel by smashing that subscribe button. Also like and share this video. If you want to be the first to get our updates, make sure you turn on your notification bell icon. As a recap, the formula for relative cell reference changes when you copy down the column or across the row, but for absolute cell reference, the formula does not change. Microsoft Excel made easy. Go ahead to watch the video on your screen that shows you what mixed cell referencing is all about, and it promises to be very, very exciting. Watch the video now.